Right now, sitting on your windowsill, there is something generating electricity. Not because of a battery, not because of a solar panel, not because of anything you plugged in or switched on. It is generating electricity because it is alive. Your plant, the one you forget to water, the one collecting dust in the corner, has been producing voltage every single day since you bought it. And you have never collected a single electron. That changes today. In this video, I am going to show you something that most people have never heard of, even though it has been proven in peer-reviewed science, demonstrated in a European city, and validated by one of the most respected agricultural research universities on the planet. Here is what I need you to understand before we go any further. This is not about copper nails in a potato. That is a chemistry trick that dies in 3 days. This is not a DIY gimmick. This is not a thought experiment. This is real. This is a real electrochemical process that has been running beneath every plant on Earth since before the dinosaurs walked this planet. Scientists gave it a name, engineers built a system around it, and a company in the Netherlands used it to switch on over 300 streetlights powered by nothing but grass, soil, and the bacteria living inside it. No grid connection, no solar array, no fuel. Just dirt doing what dirt has always done, and finally, someone gave it a wire. Before we go deeper, if you are the kind of person who gets excited when science reveals something hiding in plain sight, hit subscribe right now. Every video on this channel is built around exactly that feeling. You will not regret it. Brief pause, shift back to story. Slightly faster, build curiosity. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this works, exactly what materials you need, and exactly how to build one in about 5 minutes. The total cost is less than what you would spend on lunch. But first, you need to understand what has been happening beneath every potted plant you have ever owned. Because once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. Let's start with a simple fact about plants that most biology textbooks either skip or bury in a footnote. Here's a fact about plants that most biology textbooks either skip or bury in a footnote. Plants are wasteful. Deliberately, brilliantly, strategically wasteful. When a plant performs photosynthesis, it converts sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose, into pure sugar. But it does not use everything it produces. Instead, it does something remarkable with a significant portion of that sugar. It pumps it out through its roots, directly into the surrounding soil. Studies conducted across dozens of universities have shown that plants release somewhere between 5 and 21% of the carbon they create through photosynthesis directly into the root zone. Some studies have even measured losses as high as 40%. Think about that. Nearly half of what a plant builds from sunlight gets pushed into the dirt. This is not a mistake. This is a 400-million-year-old trade agreement. The sugars the plant pushes out attract bacteria, not a few bacteria, billions of them per gram of soil. They gather around roots in a region scientists call the rhizosphere. These bacteria feast on the plant's sugar and in exchange, they break down minerals trapped inside soil particles and deliver them back to the plant in forms it can actually absorb. Nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, zinc, manganese. The plant cannot extract these minerals on its own, but the bacteria can. So the plant pays them in sugar, and they pay back in nutrients. It is a biological marketplace that has been operating beneath every forest, every field, every garden, and every potted plant on this planet for longer than any human civilization has existed. Now here's the part the energy world has been slow to acknowledge. When those bacteria digest plant sugar, the chemical reaction produces something besides nutrients. It produces free electrons. Raw electrical charge released as metabolic waste. In normal soil, those electrons are immediately captured by nearby oxygen molecules. The energy disperses as low-grade heat into the surrounding earth. It disappears. Gone. Completely unrecoverable. Every plant you have ever owned has been leaking electricity into its soil, around the clock, for its entire life. Every lawn on your street is doing the same thing right now. Every rice field in Asia, every wetland, every mangrove forest. An unimaginable amount of electrical energy has been dissolving into dirt since the beginning of life on this planet. And in 2008, a group of engineers in the Netherlands figured out something remarkable. They discovered how to intercept those electrons before they disappear. And that discovery led to a technology with a surprisingly simple name: a plant microbial fuel cell. The technology is called a plant microbial fuel cell. The name sounds complex, but the concept is surprisingly simple. First, you create two different environments inside wet soil. At the bottom, where oxygen is very limited, and near the top, where oxygen is present. You place a conductive carbon material deep in the lower layer. This becomes the anode, the negative electrode. The bacteria living down there continue doing what they always do. They eat the sugars that plant roots release into the soil. Normally, those bacteria would pass their waste electrons directly to nearby oxygen, and the energy would disappear as heat. But in this system, oxygen is missing from the lower layer, so the bacteria suddenly have a problem. They have electrons, but nowhere to send them. So they search for the next conductive surface, and eventually they find the carbon electrode you buried in the soil. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary. Some species of bacteria do not simply sit near the electrode, they actually connect themselves to it. Certain microbes grow microscopic conductive filaments from their bodies, tiny biological wires. These structures allow them to transfer electrons directly into the electrode, a living microorganism literally wiring itself into an electrical circuit. Once attached, more bacteria gather, they multiply, they form a dense living layer called a biofilm across the carbon fibers. Thousands of tiny organisms, each transferring electrons into the anode. Those electrons accumulate. They want to reach oxygen at the soil's surface, but the soil blocks their path. So the only escape route is the wire connected to the electrode. The electrons travel up through the wire, through whatever small device you attach, and finally reach the second electrode near the soil surface. That electrode is called the cathode. There, the electrons meet oxygen and combine with hydrogen ions to form water. Sunlight hits the leaf makes sugar. Roots release sugar into the soil. Bacteria eat the sugar. Electrons flow through your wire. Electricity is produced. No combustion, no pollution, no fuel consumed. A living system, quietly generating electricity as long as the plant is alive. Let me tell you about November 2014. A company in the Netherlands called Plant E launched a project known as Starry Sky. This company was created by researchers from Wageningen University, one of the world's leading agricultural research institutes. Their idea was simple. Instead of building a laboratory experiment, they wanted to test this technology in the real world. So they installed plant containers across a public park near Amsterdam. Each container held living plants growing in soil, but underneath the soil, they buried carbon electrodes connected with wires. The modules were then connected together in series and parallel, and then they waited. On a cool evening in November, with a crowd of people standing in the park, looking up at the sky, something remarkable happened. More than 300 LED lights turned on, powered entirely by living plants. Not a single solar panel, not a single wind turbine, not a single connection to the electrical grid. The grass was already there, the soil was already there, the bacteria were already there. Plant E simply buried electrodes and collected electricity that nature had been producing all along. Later installations powered phone chargers, small sensors, and even Wi-Fi hotspots using the same principle. Nature had always been generating this energy. Engineers simply learned how to capture it. Now here is the most fascinating part. You can actually build a simple version of this system yourself. And the materials are surprisingly simple. First, you need a non-metal container. A plastic bucket or a large plant pot works perfectly. Drill a small hole near the base so your wire can exit the container. Later, you can seal it with silicone to prevent leaks. Next, you need carbon felt. This is a lightweight fabric made from pure carbon fibers. It is electrically conductive, it does not corrode, and bacteria can easily grow on its surface. Cut 2 pieces roughly the size of the bottom of your container. These will become your electrodes. You will also need stainless steel wire. Do not use copper wire. Copper corrodes in wet soil and releases ions that kill both the bacteria and the plant. This is one of the most common reasons experiments fail. Now choose a good plant. A peace lily works especially well indoors. It tolerates low light, grows strong roots, and thrives in moist soil. Finally, you need potting soil mixed with compost. The compost introduces a diverse population of microbes that helps the system start faster. You will also want a basic digital multimeter to measure voltage, and a small LED light to test the electricity. Place the first piece of carbon felt on the bottom of the container. Attach your first wire to it. This will be the anode. Then, fill the container about 1/3 with wet, compacted soil and compost. Pack it firmly so the lower layer becomes oxygen poor. Next, add a thin layer of damp sand or peat moss. This acts as a separator. Place the second carbon felt piece above it and attach the second wire. This becomes the cathode. Finally, fill the rest of the container with soil and plant your peace lily on top. Water everything thoroughly. The soil should be wet, not just damp. The water acts as the electrical pathway between the 2 electrodes. And now, you wait. On the first day, your multimeter will probably show almost 0 voltage. Do not worry, nothing's broken. The bacteria simply haven't found the electrode yet. They are there in the soil, they just haven't colonized the carbon surface. By the end of the first week, the voltage usually begins to rise slightly. Something is forming in the darkness of the soil. By the second week, the numbers begin to increase more noticeably. The bacteria are multiplying. A living biofilm is starting to form on the carbon fibers. And by week 3 or 4, many systems stabilize somewhere between 0.3 and 0.7 volts. Small, but steady. Now connect your LED and watch it glow. The light may be faint from a single pot, and that's completely normal. Because the real point of this experiment is not the brightness of the light. The real point is what that light represents. You are watching electricity created by a relationship between a plant and microscopic organisms living in the soil. A natural process that has existed on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. If you connect 2 pots in series, the voltage doubles. 10 pots together could produce 3 to 7 volts, enough to power small sensors, displays, or LED arrays. Imagine a shelf with several healthy houseplants, green leaves quietly growing, but underneath the soil, invisible to the eye, a chain of living batteries is running. The lights glow because the plants are alive. And when someone asks where the power comes from, you can simply point to the pot and say, the dirt. The soil beneath our feet is not dead. It is alive. And in its own quiet way, it is electric. If this changed the way you see the world beneath your feet, consider subscribing. And if you decide to build one of these systems yourself, tell me about it in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.